Okay. So now we're going to be getting into the actual RFA portion of the training. As you are all aware, this is a renewal year, so you're all here because you are currently funded in the program year 2023, and you'll have the opportunity to apply for renewal for the program year 2024. I guess I should have done this at the very beginning, but I ask that you silence your cell phones. Restrooms are just down the hall. The men's is on the left, the women's is straight down the hall. Slides will be provided, meeting is being recorded, etc. You can reach out to me for a copy of the recording as well if you would like that. And I think we'll get it on the website, and on the slides will be on Zoom Grants as well. So we finished part one of the agenda. Part two will now be a general overview of the RFA and process, how to navigate the application itself, a refresher on Zoom Grants, just to run through that. We're going to run through the appendices. I've printed out in your folders, there are 3 of the appendices in there. There are 6 or 7 total, but 3 of kind of the big ones are the Appendix C, which kind of we'll dive into it more later, but it talks about just our outcomes and indicators. Appendix E, which is the scoring card, which will be different this year as it is a renewal year. And then Appendix G, which refers to the CV or COVID money. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end as well. You can ask a question at any time, by the way. It doesn't have to wait for you. And we do have a nice basket of treats for you if you participate. So, as far as funds that are available, these numbers represented here are the numbers from last year or from the current year. We don't know what those numbers are going to be. We can only assume that they will be similar. So you can kind of see the general breakdown there between CDBG, ESG, and SSBG, our main 3 funding sources. There's also a couple of you are receiving the CDBG CV, which I just wanted to note that you'll see in our timeline in a minute that typically our contracts have to wait till July 1st to be executed. However, if you are receiving CV, it is not necessarily tied to that date since we already have the money. We don't have to wait for that to come to us from HUD. So as soon as if and when your project is approved by the committee and then by the mayor, that would be good to execute before July 1st, just so you're aware. This is how the general timeline looks for a year of our funding. So right now, I guess today's the 19th. The hard cost training was yesterday. So on or about the 18th was the day that we will be releasing the RFA. So after the training, probably by the end of the day today, the RFA will be open for application, and we'll go through the whole application process today too, since it is different than last year. Applications will be due. It says Zoom Grants, but we're uploading it to Zoom Grants. This application will actually be done through Smartsheets, and we'll be providing you a link. And that is due by the 22nd of November, so just over a month from now, before 5 p.m. So keep that in mind. When those applications are in, come January is when our citizen committee begins the reviews of the applications. So they will be looking at all the information you've provided, January through March. It might not take that long this year since they are renewal applications, but that is the timeline. By April is when the committee presents their recommendations to the mayor, the format of our public hearing. And then by the end of May, or somewhere in May, usually is when the final decisions are approved by the mayor, which is then at that point, that is when CV renewals would be eligible to begin, as soon as that approval from the mayor comes through. All other funding sources would have to wait through the contract discussion period to July 1st. Yeah, our period of performance. And then by this time, October, November next year, we begin the process again for open applications for the program year 2025. Any questions on the timeline? Okay. So I wanted to do a brief refresher on our provider convening and needs assessment summary that we did in 2022. The highest needs that we saw then in responses were childcare, housing, and housing. We still see those needs everywhere today, and we are still basing a lot of our priorities on this assessment. We will be conducting new needs assessment questionnaires, and basically our 5-year plan is about up, and our new 5-year plan starts in 2025. So we're going to begin all the surveying and information gathering that we need for that. I mean, Karen, if you want to speak a little more to that.
For those of you that were here yesterday, we kind of went through this, but for those of you that weren't, I'll recap this. Current 5-year plan is 20 through 2024, meaning that the renewal contracts for this are based on our last year of our 5-year plan. We have had a significant amount of transition in our department and in our division. So I say that because I'm going to apologize again for the fact that we did not get, we didn't do a provider convening or anything in September as we had hoped. To preface this, because we're doing renewals anyway. But we are going to probably about February, we are going to give all of you the opportunity to come in and participate in another Community and Support Services Expo. The intention of that is to let you set up, show what you have. We'll give you enough head time this year that hopefully we'll have better participation from community members. We had really good participation from providers last time. With that, it will be followed with a survey. The intention of that survey is just kind of put a finger on the pulse of where we are finishing up this 5-year plan. It won't affect your renewals as far as any new priorities, but it will either reinforce or help us if anything additional comes up funding in our last year. What you are going to see in the next year, we are in the process right now of getting a contractor to do our huge needs assessment for our next 5-year plan. For those of you that were around, remember in 2019, what happens is we have somebody that does a lot of community engagement. We do fairs, we do parks, we do wherever we can get in for community engagement to do a lot of questioning, surveying in the community. It is critically important that you guys participate when you see opportunities for that next 5-year plan. You are going to see change. I'm just telling you right now, you're going to see changes in our department, in our division, and how we approach funding. A couple things that we know, we're listening to you. We know that this annual 1-year contract is really hard. If you don't even get your contract till a quarter in, and now you've got 3 quarters to hire somebody and have them finish up. We know that's really hard. We want to do longer contracts. So that's part of one of the goals we're already aware of. The other thing is we also know, we know that a little, $40,000 amount, it may help plug a gap, but what we're not seeing is a huge impact. I am guessing, this is just me guessing, but I'm guessing from what I'm hearing that you are going to see our minimum threshold go up in the next 5-year plan. That means we fund fewer agencies, but we fund to a greater extent. Anyway, there's some other things that I know will be proposed or that we're going to be listening to, at least with county funds. Again, I invite you, I encourage when you see those opportunities in the next year, participate. I know it's another survey or another thing, but this is going to set up our next 5 years, and it is going to look different than the last 20. I'll just tell you right now, it'll look different than the last 20. With some significant changes to the way that we do things in order to make a greater impact with limited funds. And so I invite you to do that. So, but this is feeding last year, this renewal year, and so this is what's informing. And again, in February, we'll do some event, and it'll be more of, okay, this is where we're at. We're already contracted, but you'll have a chance to get input as far as, is there something new that you missed? You know? Or is there something that is kind of rising there up and something else that needs to be handled? You need to know that, particularly if we have additional funds, or if we need to make cuts. Depending on the budget.
On the topic of events as well, we are going to have several in the next year, one of which being, it is the 50th year of CDBG. And so I know that we're planning to do some sort of celebration. We don't know what it's going to look like, but some sort of event to celebrate the 50th year of CDBG funds, which you will all be invited to as well. So just keep an eye out for that. It'll probably be April, May, somewhere around there. I think Amanda is spearheading that. So just be on the lookout for any and all of these events that we're going to be doing the next year. We're going to hopefully give a lot of opportunities. As from last year, we decided to add to the RFA this split, these two pathways on how we categorize our contracts and our projects. And we had split them into economic mobility and economic stability. So this is just a refresher on this for you guys. You could have chosen one or both of the pathways depending on how your programs work. The defining piece of that is subsidies. That's an easier way to remember that. Basically, economic stability is you're stabilizing with subsidies. You are it's a stabilization because you are providing that subsidy. Whereas to be considered as mobility is either not using or transitioning off of subsidies to create that mobility for the people that you're serving. So we are still looking at those pathways. As this is a renewal, we don't anticipate any of those changing for you guys. It's largely going to be the same. Mostly we're just going to be looking at your goal numbers and adjusting those for a second year. Populations and prioritization. This is just a reminder of how those fit into the pathways. So whichever one that your project fits into. Prioritized populations for economic mobility is most of them 55 plus seniors, domestic violence survivors, etc. Mostly on the stability side, we're looking at the 55 plus seniors and disabled, including chronically homeless. Those are the main focuses if you are on the stability pathway. I believe you're on the stability pathway, yeah. So that's just a reminder where you guys fit into the big picture and where those priorities are. Below those pathways, your project was then identified as fitting into one of these three buckets, being housing programs, economic programs, or basic and foundational needs programs. By show of hands, who can remember which of these buckets they fit in for their project? Hey, we got one. We got one. Two. Okay. This is just something that I wanted to bring to your attention again, just as a reminder of where you are, where you fit, what you applied for. So if you're providing a housing program, that is how we're identifying the project. That's what we're looking at you as, and how we're looking to how we view your impact, if that makes sense. As far as activities within those, you'll see housing programs. We have case management, legal services, homeless prevention, rapid rehousing. Legal services is an interesting one that can be very applicable to lots of these areas, but this is basically what we pay for as the county and how that fits in on our side. So we just wanted to bring that refresher to you as well. As far as how you all fit, I wanted to show you a little graph here. First, we have, this is the award breakdown by reporting category. As you can see, homeless services makes up 48% of the funding that we gave out to you guys in this last round. The lowest being substance abuse, totaling 9%. Everything else kind of falls into fairly equal categories. Homeless services was a big chunk, so that's where we're seeing a lot of the impact. As far as breaking it down along those three buckets mentioned earlier, you'll see that 62% of the funding went to housing programs, whereas 24% went to economic programs and 15% went to basic foundational needs, which I think is rather interesting because the vast majority of your programs are in the basic and foundational needs category, but the funding kind of it balances out in interesting ways. This is the kind of information that Karen was mentioning we want to make more forward facing to you guys. We're revamping a lot of our systems and a lot of the way we gather the information because we want to have dashboards where any of you could go to our website, click on the link, and just see these breakdowns and see where you fit in the community, and just the impact that that's having. Hopefully, give you a better sense of how it all fits together. As far as key takeaways, so we're going to go over the scoring. This is basically everything that you need to know this time around. The scoring by the committee this year is not going to be scoring in the traditional sense. You're not going to be getting numerical scores. It is all going to be on a pass-fail basis as part of this renewal program. So the committee will be looking at these following areas. Also in your folders, there's the scoring part is Appendix E, if you wanted to look at that as well. They'll be looking at the scope of your project, including any changes between this current year and the next year. That might include capacity changes, if you've had a turnover of significant staff. Just if there's any significant change in the entire scope of the project and what that would look like for the next year. They're going to look at performance of your current contract, which granted, there's not going to be a lot to go on, but basically anything from now until the end of December that's been submitted in your quarterly and statistical reports, they'll be looking at that just to get a feel of how the current project is going. They're going to look at your proposed new goals for the upcoming year and they compare to your current goals. They're going to be looking at contingency plan as far as what you would do were you to get less or more funding than last year, how you would adapt to those changes. And they're going to look at your SAM participation, which is part of your quarterly reporting, to just put in your level of involvement with the SAM program. All of these components are going to be on a narrative basis. So the actual application will just, each of these components, you will have a box to provide a narrative. I believe it's 4,000 characters is the count box. So about half a page-ish is the limit. To just share a narrative in your own words of how all these components are going through your programs. And that's what the Citizen Committee is going to be looking at in come January. We're also going to have you submit a budget as well that will compare to your current year budget. Again, these are renewals, so we don't anticipate any changes in pathways or eligible activities or anything like that. We're just looking at updated phone numbers for the goals that we have. Updates in Zoom grants as well. We want to make sure that you all have updated information as far as collaborators and contacts for your programs, budgets, populations. There won't be any updating in Zoom grants itself. You'll just be submitting that information through the narratives. So this is where I'm going to pass the mic, so to speak, to Maria for a second to just give a little update and refresher on CD programs.
So who knows if you have received CDBG CD funding, if you received CDBG funding last year? Hey, mine too. That's awesome. This is targeted to both of you because you received these funds. It's programming that is poised to answer the needs to our COVID. So it's you're providing case management, education for clients, in that vein, what you're doing. This year is a renewal year for you. Because the funding is already in place, we don't have to wait quite as long to execute the new contracts. So once the mayor gives us the approved list, then we can go ahead and get your your amendments executed and out to you. So we'll turn those around as quickly as possible. Again, following Dan's information to make sure you're providing all of the narratives that we need to keep this funding in place. And then Adam skipped out, but it's very important are your SAMI participation. Do you know if you've had SAMI on the premises in the last little while, how the navigators come on a regular basis? Are they providing services to you guys? So if you haven't had a navigator on site or they haven't set up a time or a regular time to come, please get with me or Adam and we'll make sure that you have that resource at hand. That should help your case managers by taking a portion of their responsibilities off. I'm going to kind of extend that to everybody in here. If you want SAMI navigators to work with your clients, just let us know because we're looking for outreach opportunities and we want to make sure that the program is ramping up as it should be and growing as it should be. And then I think both of you committed at the level that you are helping individuals enroll. So continue that good work with that, SAMI. And again, Adam and I are your resources for that. Any questions? Any of you have questions about SAMI or the navigators?
Who do we specifically reach out to get navigators on like site or with our?
You can email me or Adam. Adam's name, you've got a list of resources in your packet. And so, yeah, isn't Adam on there? No.
Okay. You can reach out to me as well.
Yeah.
Me, Maria, really any of us can help you, but Maria and I can be the top contacts for that, and we can put you in contact with Adam.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Okay. So next, I wanted to do a little Zoom grants refresher, and I was going to have Amanda pop up here if she's available, and I'll just run you through the tabs real quick and make sure that everybody's good to go. I know we have a couple of people that are pretty new to the process still, so we wanted to make sure that so nobody's getting left behind.
Want to make sure, does everybody have access to Zoom grants, whether they're the applicant contact or added as a collaborator? If you are not added as a collaborator, you will not see the post-decision tabs. So you're not going to see the contract tab or the reporting or the invoice tab where you'll submit the invoices. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody has access to that. When we're looking at the application, and I'll let Dan speak more to it in just a few minutes, tab 1 is typically just the program summary. That information was provided in the application that was submitted last year. What I would encourage you to do is just look over that information. If anything's changed, let us know before you make any changes. The reason I say that is because on the back end, for example, if you have somebody that was with your agency that has left, if you take their information off, it could essentially disconnect that application from your organization. We can always go back and work with Zoom grants to fix that, but it does kind of create an error. So just ask you before you go ahead and make those changes, reach out to Dan or myself, and we'll make sure that that's taken care of correctly. Tab 2 is typically, in the way that we've set it up, it's a pre-qualification information. And so I don't believe, correct me, Karen, are we going to have them update tab 2?
No, you won't be able to update any of your application, but what you will want to do is be familiar with what's in there because the narratives is going to be done through Smart Sheets. you're gonna be asked to address if there's any changes, so maybe then the safety director on tab 2, you listed them, they're not there anymore, you're gonna wanna update them, or on Smart Sheet form that I'll talk about, but basically know what's there, so you know what to update.
If you all want to look in your, sorry, I'm hijacking you a little bit. If you want to look in your folder, I believe on the left side, you'll see there's appendix E. Yeah, so appendix E is the scoring criteria. You'll see each of these numbered, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. So that 1 through 6, those are all in your narrative questions that are going to be on the Smart Sheet. And so that first one, scope of project, you're going to want to include any changes that would be on that tab 2. So any changes in eligibility, any changes in capacity, that's where that would go. So it says here, please include any changes in population served eligibility for capacity. So that would be your tab 2. I highly recommend that you do just go through the tabs in your Zoom grants, look at all the questions and see if there's anything that's different now than it was when you applied. Make sure that goes in your narrative.
Tab 3 is more of the meat and potatoes of the application. That is where you've already identified what your narrative and summary of what the intention of the fund will go towards. Again, as you're looking at those questions for the renewal year, make sure, and what I would encourage you to do is, if you're not familiar with what was included in the application, take some time to go back and look at the way that those questions were answered. If there's any discrepancy, or if for some reason there's a disconnect, please explain that so that we have a good understanding of what the difference is. Tab 4 is going to be the, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the budget. Okay. And so again, that's going to tie back to the original application. Please reference that. Let us know what changes have been made. And I do believe within the library tab, as well as the documents to submit tab, which is tab 6. I'm going to skip tab 5 for just a moment. That's where you'll upload the documents that are required. You will notice on tab 6, there are a few placeholders. I believe that there are documents that are required, and then there are a few placeholders that it's optional. If for some reason, as you're answering the questions, and remind me, Dan, with the renewal, how are they submitting their answers?
So there's going to be a link on your Zoom Grants profile to take you to the Smart Sheet to do it. And it's just a Smart Sheet form. It has each narrative laid out, and you'll just fill it out. As soon as you hit submit, it goes to me and gets sent to me as a PDF. And then I will take that PDF and put it on your Zoom Grants in your Documents tab.
Perfect. So there's a few things that we ask you guys to do, and then you just kind of pass it on to Dan, and we'll make sure to finalize that. Tab 5 is tying back to the population served. Again, you'll want to make sure that you're familiar with what was in the original application. If there's anything that has changed, please let us know. One thing I do want to point out, in the past, we've asked our subrecipients to identify a single female head of household. This year and going forward, we will also be capturing single head of household. So we do ask that you, within your intake forms, please help us try and identify that. If you come across that the data that you're submitting to our office for your quarterly reports, if there's something that you want to track as a goal, again, you can work with Dan on that. If you need to kind of tweak something, please let us know why that wasn't working and what the intention is going forward and how you're going to address that. I think that's going to be extremely helpful. Also, just making sure that whatever data that we're asking from you is reflective on your client intake forms. income guidelines change every year. So what we have provided you by the time these contracts are actually executed and, you know, we're in that period of performance timeframe, I can tell you those dollar amounts are going to change slightly. So what we've given you is just a standard guideline for this year, and then the intention is as we get those numbers from HUD and they're released, we will update our website as well as grants on that. Within tab 1, there is the library documents, so that is extremely helpful.
That's where you'll find all those appendices, A through G will all be uploaded there.
And I do encourage you right now, just be aware our HCD website is in the process of being updated. So if you go to that resource, you may find forms that show 2003 or a different year. We're working on getting all of our training, our documents, our resources updated. So in the meantime, I just ask and encourage you guys to refer to Zoom grants or reach out to Dan or myself. Okay,
All right. Thanks, Amanda.
thank you.
So the next portion I wanted to actually go through just a brief description of what each appendix is, A through G. Just as a refresher, sometimes those get kind of lost in the mess of documents that we give you. There are 7 of them. Appendix A is the compliance requirements and funding source references. So this will give you a lot of really important information as far as funding requirements for these specific funding sources. I wanted to ask, as far as our ESG recipients, I don't know, can anybody tell me any ESG requirements that you're specifically asked to adhere to that are specific to ESG? Does anybody know?
Match.
Match, yeah, that's a good one. How much? What's the percent on the match? 100%. Does anyone know the percent match for SSBG? 25, that's correct. Another ESG component, yeah,
That'd be 30% of FMR limit, income limit?
yes. In addition to that, that's very good. See, Broadham knows their ESG for sure. In addition to that, there is a ESG requirement to have, I believe they call it lived experience representation. Let's see, it says participation of not less than one homeless individual or formerly homeless individual on the board of directors or other equivalent policy-making entity. That's a very important ESG regulation. As far as SSBG, besides a match, does anyone know any specific requirements for that funding source? One of them would be they are subject to SAVE, which can't remember the actual acronym what that stands for. Karen, do you know?
Now, alien verification, something or other.
Entity. Yeah, that's a documentation status for folks that you're serving. So that all this information is found in Appendix A and is very useful to you.
I'm going to add one on your SSBG. If there's any SSBG, please double check your employee files, because when we monitor, we are going to look for DHS code of conduct. It has to be every employee's file that is on that program is being touched by the SSBG. So it's a state requirement.
We've gotten more, we went in about renewing, like having people sign every year regularly. What's your policy? Is it one per person? Is it re-sign annually? Is it?
I would, for purposes of best practice, do it annually. Because what we find is if you don't do it annually, something gets skipped, and if you're only doing it on the new, then all of a sudden you've got something 10 years old that may or may not be in the file. I would recommend, or at least for our purposes, I would do it per contract. So like if you do it within this one, it's an amendment, do it within 2 years.
I think we just, we,
Yeah, I think it's here, again, best practice, I would just do it annually. We do, conflict of interest here at the CAD at the same time every year, I send it out, and it just makes sure that that box is fit.
Yeah. Attachment, your appendix B is service category definitions and terms. So this would be like, definition of terms like at risk of homelessness. Like, does anyone know the actual definition of at risk of homelessness?
Sure.
Yes. It'll also tell you like what do we actually mean when we say housing stability case management? Those kind of actual service categories, it will give you all the definitions for those. So you'll know if you're actually providing that service versus another. Appendix C is, that's the big one for me. This is kind of the structural foundation of most of what we do. It's the outcomes and performance indicators. So this is where we give the breakdown on our pathways, on our the program categories. So housing programs, economic programs, basic foundational needs, and then it'll give you the breakdown of all performance indicators that fit into those buckets. It'll give you the descriptions of them. This is what all your goals are built around. This is what our impact is built around. So to me, Appendix C is the quintessential appendix. It has that information that basically the way we're measuring your program, all of that is built around this information. So I highly recommend getting to know this appendix front and back. The Appendix D ties into the CDBG matrix codes. So it gives you a little more information on those and how they feed back to HUD, which can be valuable information for you guys as well. Appendix E, we've touched on that. That's the scoring criteria. So this is the most changed appendix this year, as it is a renewal year. So again, that will detail the entire process that the citizen committee will go through when looking at your application. It details those narrative questions, everything that you'll need to know for submitting that application. Appendix F is Sammy, and looks like Adam stepped out. Is he done? Yeah. He gave a little information on Sammy earlier, and I know that Maria works very closely with them as well. The SAMI program has really expanded and gotten its feet under itself in this last year specifically. I know they've hired a lot of navigators, a lot of people that are helping out and are willing to come to your sites and help you. Maria, do you have any more information to share on that?
Everything, thanks, Dan, you're covering it.
Yeah, so they're very available and excited to help you. So please use them as a resource. They're fantastic. They're motivated. And Adam at any given time would be happy to talk your ear off about the SAMI program itself for any questions that you may have.
I will do something really quick on SAMI. So SAMI is the tool. SAMI is the application, and then the navigators are the human piece of that. There's a couple significant updates, technology enhancements that are going on with that before the end of December. Primary one that we're working right now is an integration with 211 on the resource end of it, meaning that 211, the framework of that will be the source of truth, and it will work through an API to add additional information. So all of you have probably, your organizations, have been contacted to say, what are your primary forms that you use? What can we do? Particularly our CV, you may not have yet, but we'll be looking at what are the forms that you use a lot? How can we map the fields that are in SAMI to your forms to auto-generate? That next one is going to be taking the 2-in-1 data, bringing it into a place that search and everything works like 2-in-1, but then we will add to their source data, meaning that if you have forms, if you have specifics that maybe aren't getting updated in 2-in-1, if you have additional things that need to be added throughout the year that aren't a once-a-year update. That one is currently underway, and we see that by the end of the year. There are some other technology enhancements that'll be happening, but just want to share that with you to be aware of. But it is also designed in addition to being a resource and a tool for the end user, the beneficiary, the person in the community that's seeking services. It is intended to be, how can we take your processes, streamline anything that is stuff that is better used by your case managers, doing what your case managers do, and not spending additional time doing things that we can help streamline processes. And on the back end, what is the county looking at? We're looking at the identified data to look at journeys across the system, across interventions, so that ultimately, that's a ways out, but ultimately it will be, what can we learn from the journey of people that started at the road home and then went over to Guadalupe School and learned English and then went over and got a job and then went, what are those things for the journey? So that's what's being captured on the back end.
The last appendix is the Appendix G, which is also in your folders, and this details the funding information for the CDBG CB. I know that only a couple of you are receiving it currently, but it's good information for everyone to have. If you wanted to know more about the program. I know that the CB funds are kind of on their last leg, from what I understand. I don't know if
They are.
one of you wants to speak.
Time allocation on those recipients that are currently receiving it and have an amendment, that will be the end of it.
Okay, perfect. So those are the appendices in a nutshell, very brief descriptions, but again, I highly encourage that you go onto your Zoom grants, library documents, read through them. It's awesome information. Really gives a lot of context to the way the program works. So there's also other information in the library document, specifically the federal grants handbook. Gives you a lot of great information just on how federal grants work, a lot of the components that go into that, a lot of other funding source specific information, more than just in Appendix A. It's a wealth of information, that library documents page. One piece I wanted to touch on as far as reporting, I know I've got some questions in the past about confusion on whether we're reporting for the quarterly report, if we're asking for you to report on the entire program or just on the piece touching the funding. Correct me if I'm wrong, Karen. I don't want to say anything wrong, but I'm pretty sure for quarterly reporting, we are asking you to report on your entire program, not just the piece that the funding is touching.
So depends on if you're CDBG. So on your main reporting, it's set up so that it's getting program information. And then there's a piece that says CDBG eligible if you're CDBG. And CDBG eligible dives down to what we report in the system. SSBG and ESG, you're just reporting program wide. We get the ESG information on a specific enrollment through which my asking info.
Whereas on your statistical report, you're reporting specifically on those goals and how they tie to your contract. So that's kind of how it separates out. Are there questions on that? Over here.
Yeah, just to be crystal clear, CDBG funding. Okay, previously I heard that for like that. There's just two different kind of sections that we report on when we are in our quarterly reports. There's just like our program and then the CDBG only.
Yes.
So it's the CDBG only that's like all of our program.
It's all of your program, the individuals that are eligible that meet CDBG requirements. So like the AMI, yes, but yes, program one.
The other portion is that the only fund, like the individuals that are affected with that update or
for the statistical report portion. Correct me if I'm wrong on that too, Karen, but I believe the statistical report with those specific goals,
It's program wide.
that is also program wide. Okay, so we're talking not just people that are eligible, so entire program wide.
Let me try to clarify that.
Yeah, sorry, I know it can be weird. Yeah.
This is why. Okay, so 100 years ago, and this is personal experience, based on state grant. We had the amount of funding that we were awarded, I say we, this is never happened in the world. Had the amount of funding that was awarded, and then how much of that percentage was a total of the overall program? So basically for that, it was, I don't know, 22.1% was attributable to those. So that is a good metric for looking at how much of our funding is overall contributing to the overall program. The challenge that we run into here is that if you define programs, you may have 5 different programs under one umbrella. You know, case management is touching rapid housing, is touching all of this. And to do that, what do our citizen committees want to know? Because that's who we're really responding to. They want to know about the program. They don't care about 22.1% of the people and whether or not. They want to know program-wide, what is the impact of the program? Then we can figure out 20% of that is our funding that we can attribute. The difference is rapid rehousing. If we have a direct service component where we're paying rent. In that case, yes, you have a place that you're reporting, we provided this many households with rent assistance. You've done that before, as far as we've provided this many individuals with a direct assistance that we can tie to that funding. We still look at program, but then we tie it into direct assistance. That is why the only reason that we get CDBG eligible and break that out is because when Amanda enters into IDIS, we have to report CDBG eligible. That's the only reason we break it out. Our citizen committees want to know what is the program doing, not what is 22.1% or what is specifically, can I apply a ratio? Because that may be important to a mathematician, but we're talking about people. I don't care about 22.1%. I want to know what your program is doing.
And even though like we might just be funding 20% of your program, those funds are presumably impacting the program as a whole. And so we don't want to shortchange the impact that you are having. So we do want to see everything, you know. But yes, for CDBG, we do want that CDBG eligible count for IDIS. Any more questions on that? Okay. So yeah, again, there's a wealth of library documents on Zoom grants that you can look through. This is where, for those of you that were here yesterday, I know Amanda showed there's an interactive map that you can use that'll show like AMI of a certain area. That link is in the library documents as well. You can also find it on our website.
One thing I do want to point out, if you were not in yesterday's training, that I did touch base on, our maps are outdated. We are in the process of working on getting those updated. So I don't believe we provided one in the packet, but if you look in the library tab, you will see what we have available. And Karen, do you want to let them know what the difference is on the update that we already have?
The difference is that COVID hit, and somewhere in there, our surveyor's office, our student, we don't have updated HUD data sets in there. So when you go in, it says 2016 is what it's pulling from. It at least gives use it, it's fine to use for right now. It's not absolutely accurate. So what happens is you'll put something, Amanda goes to enter it into IDIS, and the number's different. You know, or if we were doing an area benefit, it was saying that we were at 62, and Amanda puts it in and says it's 51 or 76 or something. Right now, it's close enough. We're not worried about it. But you will see those updated, and it's just going to put has most recent ACS data in there so that it's correct.
Awesome. Perfect. I want to switch back just a little bit, just because Adam walked right back in. I was just hoping Adam could give you a little brief interview on just what you could use the navigators for, what services they could provide, what help they could be. Because I know we talk a lot about like, our navigators are willing to help, but what does that mean exactly?
Well, and I do want to apologize. I was actually in a meeting talking about that invoice stuff we were talking about earlier, so that's why I had to hop back real quick. So just a little bit about what the navigators do. So navigators really have a threefold mission that we have here. But one of the things we have is the SAMI app, which is a really great web app, and we are working to get it connected with various other community systems and organizations. But that is for your clients to take their information and take it with them wherever they go. You've got a document library. You can put in your profile information, which is just your standard form data. We've got a resource listing with most, if not all of you on it. We can take your forms and we can upload them into that resource listing so that your clients can take the information they put in their app and auto-fill some of those forms that you've given us. So that's the one piece, and that's really to empower the client and to make hopefully your job a little easier, so that when you send somebody off to go to another organization or to do something else, they have all their information. They have the assessments that you've given them. They have a copy of their ID uploaded, and they can access it anywhere on the web. So that's the one part. And then the other part we have is the SAMI Community Navigators. They are a light touch, short-term case management referral service, really. So we have a phone line that you can call. We've got an email that you can contact. We do outreach at some of your organizations. We'd love to do it at anywhere else that you guys would want us to be, but we sit there on the table, and we're just here. If a client doesn't know where to go, we're here to just sort of be that person to come to and say, all right, let's problem solve. Let's see kind of what your assets are. Let's see what you're dealing with right now and who's the best person to send to. Our hope here is that when you guys, when your case managers are getting folks, when we send somebody over, we're hoping to not send people over to you who aren't eligible for your service, because we know your case managers don't want to tell people no, they don't want to send people away. So we want to make sure people get to the right place. And then when you guys are, when you've done your work with them, and they need to go somewhere else, you can send it to us and we'll get them passed off to the next place. So that's what we're here to do. And then the other part, that third part here, is we have two specific navigators. All of them will participate in this, but we have two that are specifically for the Affordable Connectivity Program. We are really trying to get people signed up. That's $30 a month towards people's internet. If they're on basically any federal subsidy or entitlement or benefit or anything like that, they're probably eligible. And we're here to get them signed up. We have access to the National Verifier, which is the eligibility database for that. And we're looking to just help walk people through the process, verify eligibility, and make sure that they have the access to that. Partly because of the SAMI app, because you can't have people use an app who don't have internet. And then also just because, in this technology age, how many of you have your intake forms are online, or do online assessments, or utilize any number of online tools? So that's where we're really hoping to help integrate and really make that technology connection between the clients and the case managers, and hopefully make your guys' lives a little easier. So I'm happy to, if I've met with some of your organizations, probably not you guys, because are the ones who do the grant work. But we've met with some of you. We'd love to meet with all of you. Your administration or your case management supervisors, and just sort of do a brief, 30, 45 minutes of, okay, here's what we can offer and how do we want to work together so that we can make this a really positive relationship for everyone. So that's what we're here. I'm happy. Feel free to reach out to me, and well, all of them have my contact info, and we'd love to chat. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. So these are some of the questions or requests that came up out of our last provider convening. I guess we just wanted to touch base again with you guys and have you provide some feedback or ask questions if you have it, as far as how you're doing and what do you need from us? What would you like to see? What kind of training or technical assistance any of you might need from us? You don't have to share it now, but if you have anything you'd like to bring up, please feel free. Yeah,
Do you have a way to get on your schedule? Like, let's say like, I have like these 5 issues in Zoom grads, like, how can I get on your schedule? Like, do you have like a Google Calendar to block out time, or is it just like or an email request?
I don't have anything like that personally. That would be great. Maybe I should get something like that, but for right now, yeah, just reach out to me and I will work with you, best that I can. This has been a very busy season the last little while, so, hopefully now that the training is done, contracts are going through, I should be much more available now than I have been the last few weeks. So please feel free to work out, and I will fit you into my schedule for sure.
And let's very briefly, we speak about your schedule. We're all on hybrid schedules and they're all a little bit different.
Yes. So I work Monday through Thursday. So Fridays, I'm a little harder to reach. I will check my email at times, but I'm not like working on Friday. So Monday through Thursday is the best time to reach me. Really anytime between 9 to 5 is fine. Whenever works for you guys.
Angie,
I'm part-time, so I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days. in office.
okay, Amanda?
I'm available Monday through Friday. I have a split schedule, so in the morning, well, on Mondays and Fridays, I'm remote. Tuesday, Thursday, I work in the morning from home, come to Salt Lake for about 5.5 hours, and then I head back to Twilla, where I live, to finish out the day.
So it just occurred to me as we're speaking and as to your question, I'm gonna put some point, you're really gonna remind me, we're gonna go back and put on our signatures when our normal work schedules are, because, as part of the flexibility that we're trying to offer to make sure that our team is doing the best that they can and working with the work-life balance. We are all over the place. So we'll add that to our signatures. I don't expect you to remember these, but just to give a sense of Maria.
I have a split schedule as well. I'm remote Monday and Friday, but I'm available from 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, via email. And my cell phone number is in my signature. That's the best way to reach me. So you can reach me anytime.
Adam, both you and navigators.
So the Navigator helpline is available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So we can get you that phone number, and emails are, addressed as soon as we see one. So that's when the navigators are available. We generally try and have 2 on like waiting on the phones at any given time, except for maybe like the first hour of the day, 8 to 9, and then the last couple of hours, but we usually have a couple of people on. So that's when the navigators are available, and then they will come with me to the various outreach events, so they'll go through outreach. Our ACP navigators, we have a full-time ACP coordinator named Sean. He's available full-time, so he generally works he says about 8 to 4. And he comes in when he needs to. So that's something that can be worked out if you need an in-person meeting. As for myself, I'm available from about 8 to 5. And, I generally come in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I'll work from home Monday and Friday. But if you need me to come in, like I'm coming in tomorrow to work with one of our new team members. So just let me, I live pretty close. So just let me know if you need something.
Okay, sorry, watching these kids getting coffee. Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. Sorry, there's, Derek, do you want to, I know that you're kind of hit and miss with your direct, but will you go ahead and let everybody know when you're typically available?
7 to 4, and I'm all over the place. I'm usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, home, but something.
And I am typically, if you were to look at my hours, they're usually 9 to 5:30, but I'm usually checking emails and texts by 7 a.m. You are welcome to text me as well. I have many people on my team that are texting me at 11 midnight. That's okay too. I just turn my thing on. You can text me whenever. If it comes up 2 in the morning, go ahead. Well, okay, fine. So. but
I've gotten emails from you at 2 a.m. sometimes.
yeah, sure. Okay, only email. So, we are available. We cover pretty much Monday through Friday. We've got some early, some late. if you're not hearing back from us right away, it's probably because we're in one of those weeks of meetings where we're just solid. So if you're not getting a response, please, text me or call me or email me and we'll check because I might need to just pull somebody out of a meeting if it's, something's critical. So, okay.
Perfect. Wait, as far as the information that's been provided to you in your folders, we've also printed out all of your contracts for you as a hard copy. I know you can access those anytime you want on Zoom grants as well. The electronic copies are there. The contract is great to review, especially if you want to, like if you can't remember the level of involvement in the SAMI program that you elected on your application, that's in there at the end of attachment B. If you can't remember exactly what your line items were that you submitted, that's in there on attachment C. Your scope of work, everything that's relevant, screenshot of your submitted goals, that's on the last page. So sometimes having a hard copy of that is really nice. So feel free to use that whenever you want to refer and get that information. As far as any additional information, that's mostly it. I know that it's kind of weird having a renewal year, that it's very refresher oriented. I know that most of you guys, it wasn't that long ago that you were in the contract training, so this might be, I don't know. I know that a lot of you are very familiar with this stuff already, so hopefully it's not too repetitive for you, but yes.
The feedback that.
For the feedback for us?
So the application that I'm getting. So what?
Oh, from the citizen committee?
Yes.
Yes, so after they review the applications, we will be sending out a, what do we call it?
Briefing?
The debriefing, yeah.
Go from last year, from this, 20.
We can't get a question.
The debrief, did you not receive a debriefing
I'm
from?
just wondering where that is.
Oh.
Should
I don't believe that one is on Zoom grants. I just usually send those out as an email. If yours has been lost to the same time, then I can send you another one again, for sure. Yeah, typically I'll send that out as soon as everything's all wrapped up with the committee. I send out a debriefing that just includes noted strengths, weaknesses, and any other information that the committee decided to share. And that does go out along with a list of the scores, which this coming year, there won't really be a list of scores as everything is pass fail. There's not going to be ranking. There's not going to be any weighting. Yes.
For that ranking, is that a change for going forward or is that just for this year?
Just for the renewal year. Yeah. So starting again in program year 25, we will presumably be getting back to an open application for new projects as well.
And along with that, again, we'll know more, we'll have that feedback and share that. But I believe that you're going to see a pretty significant change in the way that we approach particularly community support services applications in the next 5 years. Again, with the most feedback we're getting right now is we are trying really hard to extend and not do 1-year contracts. We're tied to, we can't do 2-year contracts because I don't know if we get funding next year. But based on funding availability, we don't want you to have to apply a full-blown application every year. So I anticipate that being part of the process, as well as I anticipate seeing minimum thresholds go up, which means fewer will be funded. The other thing that I think is important to recognize, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, let's understand what's happening to funding. Mike Ackerlow is our new division director. He wasn't able to be here this morning to kind of introduce himself. Typically in the past, you may have been used to having Mike Agos give you a funding update. What do we see happening? We hope that we're not going to see, you know, in new administrations, the funding sources that we're very reliant on for a lot of these programs to be threatened again. We do know that in the prior administration, CDBG and home was zeroed out in the budget. It was gone. It wasn't even, you know, it was gone. Through a lot of agencies and feedback and national advocacy, there really, at least for CDBG, there really is a lot of support at the federal level. But when Amanda talks about we're going to do a 50-year celebration, she's going to be coming to all of you and saying, help us talk about the successes, help us talk about the impact of these funds so that we can share it both locally, but that we can also share that nationally. ESG seems to be, the last few years, the Emergency Solutions Grant gearing on homelessness has actually crept up a little bit. But I'm going to tell you what's happening again. This doesn't impact you as much as it does on the hard cost applications. But the vehicle for the county to receive funding for CDBG and ESG is because we have what is called an urban county. It's basically creating this entity, this legal entity that can receive funds from HUD. And it is made up of the small cities and towns and the unincorporated areas of the county. In the past, we've had, as of last renewal cycle, we had 18. We had 12 small cities and towns and 5 metro townships that were part of the urban county. However, this year, HUD identified 2 new entitlements because once you hit 50,000 people, you're eligible to receive your own funds. So this year, Harriman, again, was eligible for entitlement. Mill Creek was eligible for entitlement. Murray became a new entitlement. And Draper is the 4th new entitlement. So for this year, they all chose to remain in the urban county, which means all their funds come into the urban county. All of the jurisdictions are choosing to take the maximum amount that's available for public services and to put it in this pot rather than do separate applications. So it hasn't really impacted the community and support services. It is starting to impact the hard costs though, because if you have a public facility improvement that you're trying for, now all of a sudden we have 4 entitlements that are pulling their pro rata amount to do project specific, and it's reducing the amount available to nonprofits. We went from 954,000 last year available to nonprofits to, anybody got, was it not 480, 470 this year? I think it's 470,000 this year. So what that means is we're starting to see a decrease in the amount that is available, at least under the county umbrella. ESG, interestingly enough, when Harriman pulled out their dollars that are attributed to Harriman, went away. They're no longer in the county. They're actually rolling into the state now. We are going to hit a threshold that if we have additional entitlements that want to accept their entitlement status, regardless of whether they're participating in the urban county, we're going to hit a point where we don't have ESG anymore. We're going to hit a point where all of that goes away from the county and it goes into that state pot. You're familiar with what happens at the state level and that, but so a little bit of the funding that we get will just kind of roll up to the state level. So there's some things that are happening, which is also part of the reason that the next 5 years, as far as how is the county involved, is really important. We have other initiatives that are happening at the county level, which is all about leveraging and coordinating, and how can we be aware of issues and do more coordination to make sure that when available funding pops up, we already know, you know, if the mayor has, this isn't going to happen this year, but let's say the mayor has additional money that was available from discretionary funding and knew that there was this huge critical need, you know, she would already know because we're talking. And 3 that are getting really a lot of attention right now as far as what are we trying to coordinate. It is criminal justice, mental health, housing, and homelessness. Those 4. So we see, and you can see by our funding, again, was showing that 48% of funding right now with homelessness. It's because that is such a huge need that impacts everybody. So anyway, that was a very long-winded response to say, for next year, just be aware, participating, putting your voice in and making sure that we are updated on the most, prominent needs. It's really important, so.
And on that note, for those of you that are serving homeless individuals, ask yourselves how you are recording their address. Because this is why we ask that you record homeless individuals with their last known address rather than lumping them all into Salt Lake City or wherever they come from, because that's what shows the reasonable benefit to these jurisdictions that are hesitant about keeping their funds in our pot. So if these jurisdictions don't see the benefit because they're not seeing these homeless individuals tied to their jurisdiction, they might pull out and our funding pot gets smaller. So that's why that's such a huge piece for the homelessness.
That's also another reason to hear this about Sammy. Sammy is a great tool for the clients and for you. It's also a great tool for us that we will hold active reports and see the impact of, and that's really what the impetus of this program, the Sammy program was, you know, you guys do all your work with your clients. What happens when they leave, or what happens when they go to a new place? Sammy allows us to get that longitudinal view of, okay, here's the client's journey. So participating in that also provides a really great benefit to the community to say, okay, how's the community doing? Are people getting better? Are they, you know, can we see the economic mobility across a larger span of time than just when, you know, they're with an individual organization?
What is the difference between that?
I'm gonna jump in there and tell you, here's the thing, homelessness is tracked within the homeless system. So what happens when somebody leaves the Rapid Housing or successfully housed for 2 years and they're no longer being tracked in the homeless system, they're lost. I can tell you what happens in the silo of the homeless system. I can tell you what happens in the silo of the Department of Workforce Services. Within when you're actively receiving services. But typically we know, particularly with the amount of agencies that are even represented here, is you want people to be mobile, but when they're mobile, you lose it. You have no idea what happens. So that is the difference, is that HMIS tracks within receiving homelessness services. As soon as you're out, then you have to go to the education system. Okay, what's happening within Guadalupe School? Well, we can see that we, you know, being a level on the rest exam, but that's within the education system. I can track. No workforce services would say somebody unemployed, somebody dropping out benefits. I can tell you what happens there. But when we're trying to talk about these other funding sources that are not necessarily tied to a siloed system, it is very, very difficult. And for anybody that was around back in the prior administration, when we were reaching out to all of you and said, please tell us stories. Because when you look at the outputs that are tracked from that IEIS activity or that matrix code, what does that say? Okay, this many nights of shelter was offered or paid for a homeless shelter. Okay, what does we have the social work part and the business mind. So what does the business mind say? The money that we're spending is going up. Our public funds are increasing, and the amount that are going to issues such as homelessness. Why isn't that not going down? Why are we not seeing that lessen if we provided this much shelter? Because we know, I can tell you, everybody in the street, you all know the impact you have on lives and the change, which it's hard to track prevention, it's hard to track things across the system. That is the difference of what we are trying to offer something to say, what is the one thing that is consistent across the silos, across the system? It's the individual. It's the person that everybody here is trying to serve and make their life better. Other Q&A?
Yeah, do we have more questions? Yeah.
Question. So we're counting in quarterly reports like non-duplicative people
Correct.
receiving services. So I work with a couple of women who are moving, right? Or like they're going to be going from like living in shelter to an apartment, and their address changes. So potentially that like entitlement city or whatever would change, but we've already counted them as somebody receiving services in a previous report. How should we best tie that all around?
That's good. Well, so, yeah. On your quarterly reports, each quarter, you're only recording people being served new in that one. So even if it was somebody that was previously recorded in Q1, then they're gonna be shown in Q1 as residing in, you know, Midvale or whatever. And then presumably they've already received the services, so they're not going to be counted in another
Okay.
quarter.
So we don't need to worry about the like address change or,
Right.
okay.
Okay. And for Q1 reporting, which, we do in about a week, I think. Which again, I know most of you have not been able to bill or anything, so we're really just looking at, just give us any information you have on the program. We still love to see information regardless of what's happened, but Q1, you're gonna want to include not just people that were serving in Q1, but presumably everyone that exists in your program already until now. So Q1 is from Q1 back. So like for next year, Q1 is going to include everyone that you're still serving in this program from Q4 of this year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we would look at like people who are currently in like our program, plus those who prior to Q1 have been like engaged, you know,
Everyone that carries over.
anyone ever.
Whereas Q2, 3, and 4 is just going to be new people that are acting up in those quarters.
Yeah, so it's for your fiscal, the number of people that you're serving at 20 years. 5 years ago, I might be serving.
If you're still serving, yes, yeah.
Q1 is all, but Q2.
Yeah, everyone that you're currently serving, they don't have to have been added in that Q1. Whereas Q2, it's just everyone that was added in Q2. Makes sense.
And for renewal applications, it will be Q5, 6, 7, 8.
Right. So it is going to be recorded.
One reporting, we're going to capture outcomes, so they're back from the end of your 2-year period, you'll have 8 quarters.
That's another reason that we're not really looking to change what your goals are or what those are. We're just looking at numbers. Assigning goals.
It sounds like with the renewal application, we should be reviewed, but if you fail something that you don't.
Potentially, we are looking that everybody would have to pass on each of those indicators to be renewed. And it feels very, I don't know, subjective when it's in this narrative format, but it's really not. It's the committee's going to be looking just like they always do at all your applications. They're going to dive into everything and just make sure that there aren't any, whatever those concerns would be, just to make sure that they don't, that there's nothing that would impede you from achieving your goals where you renew. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I will say that our committees operate on a majority, so quorum to conduct, we only need a majority, so 50% plus 1. So it's going to be the same on the pass spell. I don't see any, I have to be careful here. I don't see any issues with any of our current subrecipients unless we're completely caught off guard by those first reports. And again, you only have through December by the time that we're looking at these, which is why the narratives become important. We understand you don't really have numbers. If you're tracking length of time in housing, you don't have anything that's been in, you know, long enough to have that 6 months. But your narratives speak to, the committee members want to know, okay, you got this money, what did you do with it? Is it working? Is it going on? As long as really they're getting the answer, just want to show what's going on in your program. Let them see it. It's an opportunity to really see. And if there's challenges, tell them about it. Don't think that by putting a challenge, you're going to get a fail on that. Just know that they want to understand. No, who was it? Somebody else, she left the ERAP dollars. They're going away. Emergency Health Systems dollars. And we're well aware that any changes that may have happened because we had hundreds of millions of dollars for 3 years, all of a sudden, your numbers may increase. I hate to say it. I hope not, but we may see continually increase in the number of people served in homelessness. Does that mean that the homeless services are failing? No. More people. So it's telling the story and giving the committees the opportunity again to have a finger on the pulse and understand.
Any other questions? about anything. Anything,
Is the renewal application available?
it will be available, we're planning on by the end of the day today, it's gonna be available, yeah.
Terms of months.
Yes, it'll be in Zoom grants. I'm planning to probably email you all the link as well, and it will be accessible. through Zoom.
Yes.
I'll also be emailing a new template for the budget for that. It'll be a template that includes your budget from this year, kind of a side by side with your proposed budget for the next year as well.
And it is 11:02.
Okay.
So, if anybody has anything else they want to talk about, you're welcome to stay after. Otherwise, thank you.
Reminder, these applications will be due Wednesday, November 22nd by 4:59 PM. So,
wait till.
exactly. If you really love stressing yourself out, then go. Like living on the edge.
If anybody, we thank you all those that engaged, participated, everybody walking out. Sugar. On the way out.
Yes, thank you to everybody for coming today.
So should I just remind you,
Want to make